Okay, hello everybody. Happy Monday, happy August. My name is Pilar Mejia, for those of you who have not already met me. I am the lead of the Gente TMRG, and I am so excited today to be doing our latest in our career growth calendar series. We're going to be talking about skip levels with some very special guests. But before I get to that, a little housekeeping. This is meant to be a session for you all. So please feel free to ask questions in the notes doc. We have an AMA section. Feel free to chime in our chat. You can even come off of mute. We are here to try and further our careers, to figure out how to navigate all the amazing resources that we have, maybe some we didn't even know about. So that is the purpose of our call today, to double click into our skip levels. And a big shout out to the Women's TMRG. You can learn all about them in 1B of our notes doc. They are an incredible TMRG. I think they're the OG, the original TMRG here at GitLab, one of the very first. So they've got an incredible leadership team, and they are teaming with us this month to talk about all things career. You can also find our August diversity information in Slack. Big shout out to Liam, who has given us a good, better, best way to engage with each other in August, which includes Indigenous Peoples Day and also Women's Equality Pay Day. So that's the cool background you've got here, also in the notes. So with all that being said, I'm so excited to introduce my wonderful co-host, Gosia. Hello, how are you?
Hi, my name is Gosia Ksionek, and I'm a co-lead in Women TMRG. And today, as Pilar said, we're speaking about skip levels. And I'm so excited to introduce our guest expert speaker, Michelle Gill. Michelle is a director of engineering for Manage and AI Powered. She joined GitLab in 2019 as an engineering manager. Then in 2021 was promoted to senior engineering manager, and she was leading 5 teams then. And now in 2022, she was promoted to be a director of engineering, and she leads Manage and AI Powered. So for last 3 years, she had a lot of indirect reports, so a lot of skip level experience under her belt. And Michelle's favorite emoji is dancing Pikachu. If you ever saw Michelle reacting something else, like there will be dancing Pikachu. And you probably doesn't know it about Michelle, but she herself fixes a vintage car as a hobby.
Ooh, this is all the good intro. Oh,
I'm so humbled, Gosha. Thank you. I feel so seen. I feel so understood. That is exactly my bio, and so thank you for that. I mean, for both Pilar and Gosha, you have done such a great job with the questions, with the organization, and with making this so low effort. Thank you.
good. That is the intention, because we're so excited to learn more about you. One thing, this is my first time meeting you, Michelle. Where are you based out of?
Yeah, good question. I am in Dallas, Texas, USA. Sometimes you can tell that by the things that I say out of my mouth, but a lot of my team is in Europe, and so I do work European hours. Also, to be honest, I like that time frame anyway. But I do live in America, so you can see me popping in and out at random all day.
That's awesome. Fun fact, I was actually born in Dallas, Texas, but that's about all I did there. So I need to come back and visit you so I can maybe check out the scene, see how much of that has affected my vibe. So let's hop into it. First things first, what is a skip level meeting? I think we'd all love to understand it from your perspective.
Okay, this one is actually tough because there's a few different perspectives, right? Who wants to get what out of it? So your skip level is going to be your manager's manager. So given that this is a meeting with your manager's manager, you have an opportunity. And again, it depends on what you want your perspectives to be, but you may want to know, how does this person see you professionally? You may want to know what this person's life is like. If you're looking at moving up in your career, at some point, you're going to be in that position. So you can ask those questions. You may want to know what broader problems are happening in the organization. Maybe you're bored in your role and you have some free time and you want to pick up some other stuff. They're going to have a more broader view than your manager will. So maybe you've already talked to your manager about this and you've kind of hit the end of the street. Your manager's manager will have more options for you. You also may want to give them information or feedback. You may want to say, hey, my manager could really improve in this area. My team could really improve in this area. My counterparts could improve in this area. But you're asking me this question. So what do I want to get out of a skip level? A lot of things. I would consider this meeting to be, what information do I need to provide to this person? And what information do I need to get back from this person that only my skip level can give me? That makes sense?
Yes, and I love that call out immediately about the context and the perspective and the point that we're all unique, right? We all have unique experiences as individual contributors, as managers. So by default, we can all learn from each other. So that's extremely savvy to try and figure out what it is we need to learn from this meeting of the mind. So I love it. Thank you, Michelle. Gosia, I think you have the next question.
Yeah, so I have like, because you're director, Michelle, so what you are looking during your skip levels, what is your goal when you go into a skip level meeting with anyone from engineering team?
Yeah, I stopped short on my last answer because I was going to save it for this one. I think I'm going to take care of probably questions 4 and 5 here. Why am I holding them? What is my goal and why is it important? So the reason I find them important and the goal that I have with them is, I say this to everyone in my organization. It's a super vague, broad statement, but it is 100% true. My goal is to improve the individual that I'm talking to, the manager, the team, or the company, based on the feedback that I'm getting from that call, whether you know it or not, whether you think it's a coffee chat or not. The way I'm doing that is by identifying trends and patterns that multiple team members have surfaced to me through skip levels. So the ultimate goal is to give that feedback to your manager on how to improve. And I'll give you an example of that. If I ask you, does your manager need to improve? You might say, no, my manager is the best. But then if I ask you, how have things been with your team's roadmap planning? You might say, we're not very transparent with the issues that we schedule. And your teammate might say, things keep dropping on us pretty unexpectedly. And then your other teammate might say, I'm actually very burned out. Okay, well, all 3 of those are the same statement in different degrees of variance, right? But all of them are a trend that I can give to your manager and say, y'all have got to figure out your roadmap planning. You've got to be more stable. That's the feedback to your manager. I know you thought your manager was doing a great job, but there are all of these other areas that are stacking up and they can help you there. And so that's really what I'm looking for. 100% of the time, I'm hearing feedback from you that I have heard before in some other way. And I'm going to just pass that on to your manager to make it more actionable for them to act on.
That's awesome. And I think that kind of leads nicely into, and why is it important, right? Identifying room for improvement is what I heard, which is fantastic. And I also liked how, it's that lesson of, if you give a yes or no answer, you're not going to get as much information as if you find a specific thing that is part of the day-to-day and maybe double click on that to kind of glean some other information. So
yeah, exactly. And what is that going to do at the end of the day? If your manager helps you alleviate those problems, great. But at the end of the day, that's filtering up to the company. That's improving the company. All of the challenges that all of the team members across all of the teams are having, that's going to create a trend that impacts the top of the company. And so why is it important? This is your way, alongside engagement surveys. I treat skip levels the same as an engagement survey. This is your way to make a difference, not just within your team, but to ladder up to your company.
great call out on the engagement survey. That's another great place to collect feedback. Gosia.
Yeah, so how do you expect your your reports to prepare for skip level meetings? So it's the most beneficial for both sides. So how all of us can prepare for skip level meeting?
Okay, this is a great question. I'll give you two answers. I'll give you the answer that I tell my skip levels, and then I'll give you kind of the real answer. The answer that I tell my skip levels is you have got to fill out the agenda in advance. I'm going to have a lot of questions, and also you're going to have a lot of questions. And so sit down and take the time to fill that out in advance to make the most of that time. That's what I tell people. The real answer is I've seen it all. I've seen it all. If you show up with an empty agenda, we're going to have a coffee chat. And I love those too. I love just getting to know people as well. And I promise you through that coffee chat, you're going to make some complaints or you're going to give some positive feedback. And again, 100% of the time, I probably have heard it before and it's going to lead into some other trend. So I would say, please take them seriously, but you don't have to. Just really focusing on like I said before, what information do I need from this person and what information should I give to this person?
This is like a great segue to my next question, which is like how we can bring up our like ambitions or career development challenges during skip level meetings. For example, if like agendas probably are different, probably there's no one agenda for skip level. So how can someone bring up those ambitions or challenges when like they feel like there's no place in the agenda to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was going to say one thing, but now maybe I'll say another. It's important to differentiate between your career development and your skip level meeting. Okay, your manager is responsible for your career development or your mentor is. I wouldn't necessarily put that on your skip level. So it's important to differentiate that. Use your skip level kind of as a means to receive or provide feedback. And if you're interested in getting to the next level, consider a formal mentor. Okay, but with that said, this is my original answer, and I think this is what you should use skip levels for. Just do it. I'm a big fan of Nike's motto, just do it. There's many ways to bring these things up and ask questions. You need to know what the visibility is between your skip level and you when it comes to your career. So what I said is still true. Hold your manager accountable to your career development, find mentors, find the resources, and take that ownership. But you really need your skip levels feedback too, because their perspective will be more broad. Your manager is only going to understand how you're performing relative to the rest of your team. Your skip level is going to understand how you should be performing at a larger organization across numerous teams. So I would say just bring it up. Just ask the question. There's many ways to bring it up. There's many ways to ask this question. I'll tell you the best one I ever had, and the reason I referenced it right now was the best question I ever had was, what visibility do you have into me? And that question is almost like, do you know that I exist? And the reason I think that that is such a good question is because I can answer it a different way depending on so many different factors. Your level in the organization, my conversations with you, like for example, Gosha is within my organization, but she is also in a lot of TMRGs and she is also doing a lot of outside work. And she's also, so one way or another, I will have visibility into Gosha and I may not into someone else. So I would say just bring it up, just ask the question, but also you're really going to need that relationship with your skip level because you may not like the answer that you get. The answer may be none. I have no visibility into you. And you know what? That's the best answer that you can get by asking that question, because now you know, maybe I should ask what my next step should be. How can I be more visible? So anytime you're like, oh, I wonder if I'm doing a good job, or I wonder if this person understands me, or I wonder what this person is going through, just ask them. Just ask them. And if they're not comfortable telling you, or for whatever other reason, keep that relationship going, because at a certain point, that's going to pay off for you. That makes sense? Did I ramble too much?
Not at all. And I
Yeah.
love it. I think your new slogan is just ask them. So we'll take the Nike, just do it. Just
Yeah.
ask them. And
Just
it's
ask.
a good reminder. But I feel like it's one of those things that's easier said than done. So thank
Yeah.
you for reminding us to
Yeah.
ask the question. So I've got the next question, which is how and where do we get started? For folks that nobody has talked to them about a skip level or told them, I'm in a unique situation where I kind of have two paths of leadership. So I hardline to a VP of sales. I dotted line to a VP of channel. And in both cases, I was prompted by once, the VP comes in, please set up a skip level with us. But what happens if that's not a prompt that you get? Is there someone that's responsible for scheduling the skip level? And then also, I want to make sure I don't forget to ask, you mentioned a template. I'd love to understand where that template is too.
Did I say template? We've got plenty of
Or
templates.
agenda, sorry, yes.
I can definitely link to some in a bit because we've got plenty of templates. I mean, these are all just questions. They're all just questions. Who's well, first I'll just ask, like, by show of hands, those of you who have your camera on, how many of you have never had a skip level at GitLab? Okay, just one. It's not two. Oh, it's worse. Just group ones. Okay. So I would say, now I'm talking to you. I would say, I'm a big fan of responsibility. And actually in this question, I would say, I wouldn't necessarily hold anyone responsible. Again, I'm really going into what information do I need from this person? What information can I give to this person? So I think that anyone who has indirect reports, you must be conducting skip levels. You must be. You cannot get your information from your organization from one person, the manager. That's like a single point of failure. You need multiple data points. So if I had to pick somebody who's responsible, it's going to be that manager's manager for scheduling them on some regular cadence. Okay, but we've got variants with that. We've got group calls. We've got some that aren't doing it at all. And so on the other hand, your skip level can't read your mind. If you need these answers, if you need to give this feedback, if you have these questions, kind of just do it. Schedule that meeting with them if you have topics to discuss. I think that skip levels are a two-way street.
I have a question that's kind of on the same area. And also I see that it appears in the chat. So yes,
Yeah,
we did. We find a good question. So what if someone wants to discuss the opportunities in the company or the personal questions, somehow personal, and they only have a group one-on-ones? How to deal with this situation?
Yeah. So, okay, the question that you gave me is different from the agenda. The question that you
Yes.
gave me was, I have this topic to discuss, and they keep
Yes.
scheduling group calls. So I would kind of push that back and I would say, well, then why haven't you scheduled a one-on-one call? What it really comes down to is, are you comfortable with it? Okay, because from the skip levels perspective, and again, going back into that's a two-way street, managers are acting on the information that they receive. So it's possible that that skip level manager has an enormous amount of information that they have already received from multiple indirect reports in their org. So for them, a group environment is fine. They're getting the information that they need. But in this question, in this example, you're not getting the information that you need. And so that kind of goes back to my last answer, where it's like, well, if you're not getting the information that you need, then you should be responsible for setting up that skip level on a more frequent cadence or more personal. You can also just give that feedback and say, that could be a trend. You can also give that feedback and say, hey, the group skip levels are actually, I don't feel comfortable bringing a lot of things up in those. And that style of format is not very good for me. And then that skip level might say, actually, I've received that feedback so many times. This is a trend. I'm going to get rid of the group calls. Or they may say, actually, you're a unicorn. I've never heard that before. but I can definitely help you with that problem by meeting more frequently with you or meeting with you privately. But all this goes back to is communication. Like we have to stop looking at the hierarchy in the org chart, and we have to start just sending out the calendar invites or sending out the Slack messages.
I love that. And I know it can be really daunting, especially for folks with like really strong like leadership culture, if that makes sense, where you're not supposed to be reaching out. You're not supposed to be giving honest feedback. That could be a really scary thing to say, well, I'm not seeing it on my calendar. Let me reach out and schedule it. So thank you for calling out the perception of hierarchy, which obviously corporate structures have, and that we should feel comfortable taking action and asking about it, you know, even if you're not comfortable just putting it on a calendar, ask your manager, ask somebody.
And I would also say if you're not comfortable, why not? Okay, because that's the feedback that you need to give to your skip level. I'm not comfortable bringing this feedback up to my manager, to you, to whoever it is, because again, that may not be the first time they've heard that. And so that's good feedback to provide.
100%. Before I ask number 10, I did want to call out some of the chats. We've got some great comments happening in them. To your previous recommendation about asking, hey, like, do you know who I am? What visibility do you have on me? I might be concerned they might take offense if I ask if they know that I exist. So how do I kind of place that so that they take it in the right way? Any thoughts on that?
The way that this was asked to me, and by the way, it is a bit difficult to offend me with questions, but with that said, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But with that said, the way it was asked to me was something like, what visibility do you have into my work? What visibility do you have into my work? So this is not telling me that I know or don't know anything. It doesn't put me on the defensive. It doesn't put anything on you. This is a good question. No matter what the answer is, it's going to give you something good in the end. So I felt like that was just such a respectful way of asking that. But what it did to me, though, it stopped me in my tracks. Because in some cases, the answer is not, I don't know what you're working on. Sometimes that is the answer. And again, that's when I say, you know, those are the best conversations then to say, you know, maybe what you're working on is really, really important for your team. But because it's not maybe so important to the whole stage, I don't actually have a lot of visibility into that. What reasons are there for that? Are you all surfacing your team information? You know, do I have a lot? Am I too busy? Did I miss it? You know, there's a lot of questions that come out of just that one very respectful question.
Yeah. No, I love that. Open-ended questions. And to your point, we don't know what we don't know. So there's nothing wrong with getting some context up front. So all right. So my question, my official question that I'm meant to be asking right now is, how often do you recommend that skip levels occur?
How often do I recommend that they occur? This is so multifaceted. I used to say to my organization, I used to say, I want to talk to you every quarter. But again, I think one of my just last answers, you know, I'm acting on the information that I have. And sometimes, especially when there's a problem in your organization, I have no shortage of information. I'm hearing about that problem from everyone every day. I don't need to skip level. I just need to fix this problem. So I think a general rule, it would be good to have them every 3 months, but kind of what I just said, I wouldn't be offended if it goes 6 months. I wouldn't be offended if it went 8 months. If it's going a year without you talking to your skip level, I think there's a problem. I also think, again, it's multifaceted, depends on your level. Say you're an intermediate engineer and you've just joined the company. You've got your manager and you've got several seniors on your team. That's a lot of points of feedback for you. You're getting feedback from the onboarding issue, from people ops, from your manager, from the seniors on your team. And maybe you have very clear goals too, so you've got a mentor as well. I think you're good without the skip levels unless you have very specific, and this happens too, unless you have very specific reasons. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of intermediates who join the company and they say, Michelle, I have a thing to tell you. I just came from this other company. I just joined this company and y'all are doing it all wrong. Did you know this one thing that could change everything that they were doing that you are not doing? You know, so those are still really beneficial to have those conversations, but it depends on what you want to get out of it. If you're already doing so much, if what you want out of the skip level is some sort of growth and you're already doing a lot of that, then I would say for you to schedule it, it would be okay if you went a bit longer. But anyway, long story short, I think 3 months is a good general rule of thumb, but there's no fast rule there. It can go 6 months. It shouldn't go past a year, but it's really going to depend on what you want to get out of it and what your skip level needs to get out of it.
Makes total sense. Thank you. I see
I have
some.
no clear answers today for any of you. I'm very sorry.
There's a lot of factors, and yeah, I see
Yeah.
someone chiming in. Their experience has been every 1 to 2 months. So yeah, I think it really depends on scalability too.
Yeah.
Gus, yeah, I think you have the next question.
Yes, I do. So we have, people who have like, as myself, I'm an engineer. I have like very clear, I have my manager, I have you as my skip level. I have Tim Salman as now VP, but there are people who work more cross teams and like cross-functional. Like for example, in engineering, there's PMs who work very closely with the teams, but also like they report to their group product managers, or like Pilar said, she works like kind of cross-dotted to teams. So how do you approach people who are like work very closely with your teams, but like do not answer directly to you? Do you schedule skip levels with them, or how do you approach that?
Yeah, this is a good question. This is interesting. That's not something that I consider a skip level. But what I said I consider a skip level is the feedback piece. And again, I'm acting on the information that I have, and skip levels are only one data point. So I don't consider that a skip level, but since the main goal for me in a skip level really is going to be manager feedback, I am also meeting with the manager's counterparts. You called out product, but there are also numerous others. I try to meet regularly with them, and guess what? Their managers are my counterparts, and I meet weekly with them. So all of this feeds into these trends. I mean, and when I say that, it really is as broad as that. When I pass feedback on to the manager, I'm not naming names or anything, but I am kind of saying, there's 10 people on your team plus 5 counterparts. Like all of them want this thing to change. We've got to work on changing this. So I don't consider that a skip level, but I do meet with my own counterparts weekly. I do like to meet with a manager's counterparts, at least on the same cadence as a skip level. And all of that is going into the same kind of theme of how do we move these teams forward? How do we grow them? How do we challenge them? And at the end of the day, how do we scale them to make an impact at the top?
That's great.
Are there any follow-ups on that one? I feel like that one I might have been a little, there's a lot in that one and it deviates from skip levels. Okay, we can go.
Awesome. We have a couple other questions in the AMA section, but there is one question that I like to ask every leader that I get the opportunity to meet, because it's so fun to see what folks say. And that is, I would love to know what the best piece of career advice is that you have gotten.
I'll give you 2. Okay, but I'm gonna skimp on some information on the second one. Okay, so the first one is the rubber band concept, and I always keep this rubber band on my desk so that I can illustrate the concept. Of course, now I have a flower wall, so it might be hard for you to see the actual rubber band, but my kind of concept here with the rubber band is, okay, if you consider person A to be the rubber band, Gosha's the rubber band. My job as a manager but something that you should do yourself, okay? I tell this to managers, but it's something you should keep in mind for yourself. Okay, Gosha, I'm talking to you, you're the rubber band. How far can you stretch? And why do I want to stretch you? I'm trying to stretch you as far as I can without this rubber band breaking. And I'm not doing it to get more work out of you. I'm doing it to make you stronger. If your rubber band is too loose and I'm not challenging you, it just falls right off my fingers. This is when people leave the company. They're bored, they're not growing, they're not challenged. And ultimately, even though they may be satisfied in their job, that means that they're not happy in their job and they may leave. They're at risk to that. Okay, so I want to stretch you as much as I can, but what happens when I put some additional pressure on you? The rubber band breaks, it flies away. And that, again, is when people quit. You've now overwhelmed them. You put too much pressure on them. They're burnt out and they don't want to be here anymore. So it's really tricky, but you want to focus right there in the middle where you're always tight enough that Gosha is able to keep learning. She's always learning something new. She's always learning something new. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, Gosha. But you don't want it to be too tight that it's going to cause them to snap. So the best career advice that I've ever gotten would be to keep challenging, keep the rubber band tight, and try to look at every person individually on that level. And the second is going to be big rocks. Okay, big rocks. Let me try to get here's the video. I don't love the video. They could have done a better video, but it is the first thing that comes up when you Google it. Big rocks is this concept. It's just a time management concept. I'm sure you've all heard very similar kind of theories, but big rocks is this concept of you have a glass, and in your glass, which is your work week, you can put a big rock, a lot of pebbles, or some sand. So this is basically focus every single week on what is most important for you to move forward. How do you know that? It's the thing you don't want to do. It's the thing that you keep avoiding doing. It's the thing that you're actually not going to finish in a week because it's going to take you forever to finish. Those are the things that are strategic enough to move you forward personally. And when I say strategic, I don't mean like you have to be the CEO of the company to strategize what this is. This is just the most important thing in your personal life that can help you personally move forward. And the reason you don't do it is because there's so much sand in your day that's way easier to do. It's much easier to check off your to-do in GitLab than it is and to sit down and understand what should I ask my skip level in their meeting that will help me move forward in my career. So again, I'm going to skimp a little bit on the information here. I do think it's a longer kind of, if you watch the video, I think it's a longer kind of, you have to be intentional. And you have to sit down with yourself and look at yourself and say, what is my big rock? But this is a truly powerful tool to help you understand, should I be doing all of that easy stuff that takes me 2 seconds to do? Or should I be spending my week on this really big goal? Because if I spend my week on this really big rock, it's easily going to fit into my glass and all of the sand can just fill in around it, as opposed to me doing the sand first, and then the slightly harder thing second, and now my rock doesn't even fit in the glass because the glass has filled up. So there's a video there. I don't love the video, but it does explain the concept.
You are speaking my language though, Michelle. I'm such a visual person. Gosia, please go ahead.
Like, I can testify that this big rock exercise is great to do. If you put in your calendar, time for your big rock, the things that you hate to do, but it's important. After a longer time, it makes a difference. And I know because Michelle told me this some time ago when we were working directly. And yeah, I was doing the big rock exercise with her. Yeah. It was hard, but it paid off.
Such a good call out. Okay. Our AMA section, for those of you that are here live, please, if you have something that you want to ask, this is a great time to do it. And I see that, Gosia, you grabbed a question from the chat from Sandra.
Yes. Sandra, do you want to ask yourself or should I verbalize? Sandra is not here anymore. Okay, so
I'm already answering it. Okay, so Sandra asked, I love this question. How do you relay the information that happens in a skip level to your own manager? And she says it can feel like a game of telephone. It can feel like other things too. It can feel like your skip level just ratted you out to your manager, or just told something very personal to your manager that you didn't want to share. Like there's a lot of things that could feel like. So I think this is a very good question. The way that I relay the information to a manager is actually much more ambiguous. So first of all, well, I shouldn't have wrote that in the agenda because, you know, now it is actually ambiguous. But first of all, I ask every person that I talk to, the very first question in the agenda is, are you comfortable with me sharing this agenda with your manager? And in that way, I can literally share the whole conversation that occurred between me and your direct report with you as feedback. Okay, not everyone does that, and I'm not pushing anyone to do that. And so if they do not do that, then I always, when I provide skip level feedback to my manager, I always say, here's the theme. I just tell, you know, all of them talked about these 4 areas, and I don't go into details in terms of who said what. With the agendas, though, the way that is really helpful is I'll do all of the skip levels for a given team in a given week or 2 weeks, and then I will link to all of those agendas in my next one-on-one with the manager, and I won't say anything else. This is not my team. What trends did you identify reading through all of these that maybe you think you should address? And then, like I said, I will always identify at a high level, kind of these are the 4 areas. Like everybody had problems with planning. Everybody had problems with lack of direction. But in terms of what you do as a manager and how you take that feedback, you're able to kind of see it for yourself and what those trends are that are emerging. So this is a good question. I would ask this question in a skip level. I would say, how do you give feedback to the managers? Once I have this call with you, what are your next steps to take? And then again, if you're not comfortable with a certain thing and you already know it, you should say that. You should, because your skip level is going to be taking that in as feedback. So if you're not comfortable sharing some of that, you should really make that clear. Or you should say, you know, confidentially, I have some feedback to give on my manager. You know, you may not like your manager. You may have the skip level may be critical feedback on your manager that you're not comfortable sharing. And even that is good to know for your skip level. Why aren't you comfortable sharing it with your manager? What's there that I can dig into?
That's great. Thank you for that. I love asking how they provide that feedback. That's super helpful. Hannah, I see that you wrote in the next question. Would you like to verbalize it?
Sure. Michelle, the rubber band example, how do you as a leader know what is like a positive way of stretching the rubber band versus what might be something that's so incredibly challenging it would make it snap?
I'll give you the answer from my perspective managing managers. Okay, but it's really going to be the same, but I can be more specific. So when I'm managing managers and I'm trying to see if they're at their band limit or not, I'm managing for signs in their language and in what they do. So an example of what they do would be, you know, I asked you to do something on Monday. You normally always do everything that I ask of you, but this Monday you didn't do the thing. I wonder if something is going on with this person. And then the other way that I do that is listening to their language. How was your week this week? So busy. It's a very busy week. You know, but you've had the same week. You had the same week last week. And when I asked you how last week was, you said it was going great. So what has changed between this week and last week, except for your perception of how much work that you're doing? So there are little indicators like that you can pick up all the time. You know, especially when you're headed towards burnout, which is where the rubber band concept most often leads you because you are pressuring people too much. When you're heading towards burnout, you don't know that you're headed towards burnout. It's not till you get there that you realize you're burned out. So you have to look at those little indicators along the way for other people, because a manager especially is not going to recognize that they're headed towards burnout in themselves. They're really going to depend on their manager to start flagging those things. Hey, it was a busy week this week, but actually you have less work to do this week than you did the last several months. So there is a reason that you feel so overwhelmed this week, and let's dig into what that is. And those were super small examples, but if I'm pressuring one of the managers too much, these examples come up every day. They come up every day. They either, or they'll respond, I'll ask them to do something and they'll respond with, they didn't read the thing that you said. They gave you a different response. They were too busy to even read back the thing that you said. That's another indicator. So these little things will happen all week long that kind of tell you, leave this person alone for a while. They've got a lot going on. You don't need to add more.
That was really interesting. Thanks for those specific examples.
Yeah, you're welcome. Y'all want to know as well, since we're talking about the rubber band, I forgot there was a dog on the bed when I did that, and it hit her right in the face, but she didn't wake up at all. So she didn't wake up at all. She's fine.
Amazing. I wish I could sleep as well as my dog does. That's on the to-do list. Figure out how to manage that super skill. Okay. Are there any other questions in regards to skip levels? We have 8 minutes left. And I think this has all been such a great conversation. I think, the reminders that stood out to me was the two-way street, right? This is a relationship just like any of our relationships, that they're great, but boy, they do take some work, don't they? Right? We can't just sit back and expect things to come to us. If this is a conversation we need to be having, which it sounds like we really all need to make the time, both as individual contributors and as director, VP level leaders, to have these conversations. Because
I love what you said there, because you said this is just another relationship. Okay, if there's one takeaway from the call, that is what I would actually recommend that it be. That's just another relationship. That's not your big bad boss's boss. That is another team member on your team who just happens to have more information about things than you might. And you should take advantage of that. Just like you would lean on your teammate, you should lean on your skip level to give you that information if you need it. And then kind of build that relationship with them.
very true, because we're all essentially holding data points from our day-to-day lives that not everyone can see. And I really liked your earlier comments too about how it's not just going to affect at the director level, at the VP level, like it's all the way up. If we have these certain trends that are occurring and no one is talking about them, then we can't do anything to get ahead of them or to fix them or to just build a better environment overall. So I thought those were really, really great reminders. Any other questions before I do a wrap up or comments? There's really great chatter in the chat. Folks definitely are thinking about it and experiencing it. So I'm so glad we had a chance to kind of take a look at it in a little more detail. And of course, we have handbook links, and those are at the top of the notes doc as well. But if there's no other questions here on the line, going once, going twice, with a whopping 5 minutes left. Okay, perfection. I just want to remind everyone, this is a series, right? So each month we're tackling a topic and we're taking a look at a division. Later this month, we're hoping to learn a little bit more about our legal division. So you can keep an eye on our August issue for the details on that. But next month, we will be talking about sponsorship. And I know, Michelle, you actually gave a call out to that towards the beginning of our conversation, as far as what are you doing for your career growth? What are the different things that you've got in your tool belt to make sure you're able to keep things moving forward. And that is one that we're really excited to talk about. We've got a couple of folks on a panel that are going to be sharing their experiences. So with that being said, also, this is meant to be for everyone, right? It's all about internal mobility and giving you all the resources you need. So if you've got a story, a topic, a GitLab tool that you want us to cover, go ahead and submit it in our suggestion box found there in the notes doc. It is anonymous in case your topic is something that you're a little uncomfortable talking about. And obviously, this is always a place of psychological safety here in the TMRG world. So we'd love to hear from you all. And with that being said, let me check the chat. Gosia, do you have anything that you wanted to add before we sign off?
I just want to thank Michelle for joining us today. It was great to have you. And I was really so excited. Like, Michelle is such a great leader. You have no idea. She was managing me for 2 years. And she was actually the person who, we had a skip level coffee chat when she joined my stage. And I said like, oh, I would like to do that. And she suggested that I have a mentor, and then things start rolling out. So this is what you do with skip level. You just say that, oh, I was thinking about something, and then you let this thing roll out and bring great results. So this is also why I wanted to host this session with Michelle.
Yes, thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you, Gosia, for your for co-hosting.
Yeah, so
Thank you,
kind,
Pilar.
so kind, Gosha. But I definitely want to say the thank yous as well. Like, thank you all for listening and having these great questions. These are such good questions to ask. And I would ask your own skip levels some of these questions too. I'm so appreciative. Just the fact that people want this information, like this is another indicator. This is a good sign. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone on the call for your time. We'll have the recording up if you want to share it with anyone that you think might be interested as well. And we will see you all around the virtual office. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful
Thank you.
day.
Have a great day. Bye.